Hello to everybody online. My name is Mike DeCecco. Thank you for joining us here today. Fortunately, the rain's held up more or less, so it wasn't too bad getting here. We normally start off our meeting by asking in the room at first, do we have any new members or any guests today? No, it looks like all familiar faces. And how about online? Do we have anybody new joining us?
No, I guess not.
Anybody putting their hand up? No? Okay. Get started. We normally ask too at this point, does anybody have any announcements that they would like to make? I'll take that as a no. How about online? Any announcements? No? Okay. I have a few things I got to cover. Today, of course, it will be the last meeting of our season, and we start up again in September. It'll be on September 8th. And I also wanted to point out that Mark has been very busy starting to schedule the dates for next year. All the dates are set to more or less the same weekends that we've had this week, or this year. There's just usually a day or two difference based on the calendar. But we'll be posting the actual dates online. And so again, the next meeting is September 8th. And if you have a topic that you'd like to either help have covered or even just make the suggestion, talk to either Mark or myself. We'd love to hear from you and get your feedback as to what you want to be presented at these meetings. And we try to have a variety, try to have some of the same topics and then also new ones too. So we'd love to hear from you. And the same for everybody online also.
Did you want Steve to talk about his presentation?
Who's going to?
Steve, because he's going to talk about the first one of the year.
Sure, okay. So I understand in September, Steve O'Neill's going to talk about the presentation he's going to do. So we got to flip the camera around.
So we've had this great tradition for the last few years of how to start off the season, and it's your favorite record. So if anybody has a favorite record that they'd like to bring along or play online, that would be great. I usually bring in an electric record player, so we can play the actual record. But if you prefer, you can send us a digital file, or you can just play it from home if you're online. So think of that over the summer about what record you'd like to play, and we'll do that on September 8th. So you can send me an email, and my email is steve@caps@gmail.com. That's steve@caps, one word, @gmail.com. So look forward to hearing from you.
Thanks, Steve. Do you have a theme to that presentation, or is it just your favorite record?
Always leave it wide open. As I said, as I normally put out, I put out an announcement, and it's usually from ABBA to Zappa. Preferably neither.
That's quite a range. And it doesn't have to be on 78, right?
It doesn't have to be on 78.
Or
It can
cylinder.
be on 45.
Okay.
In fact, I think I'll bring a 45, but it's a reissue of a 78. So there you go.
I guess it'll do for our purposes. Okay, thank you. And I understand too that we're going to be seeing the new newsletter coming out soon. It's in the works, whatever. And Mark's reminding me too that we need more contributions to the newsletter. Mark does a fabulous job at digging up really interesting material for us to review every quarter, but we are getting a little low on material. So it could be anything ranging from your favorite artist or a part that you've seen or something you're wondering about. Just again, please contact Mark or myself. We'd love to get your contributions.
Anytime, because I'm going to need articles for the whole next year.
Right. So, again, the club works when everybody contributes to it, and there's such a vast amount of knowledge in this room and online, so we'd love to hear from you. And in terms of grammar and things, you don't have to be a great writer because we have people who help clean up the material before it gets published. And it's often nice just to have a second set of eyes read an article. I found that often if I write something and just have someone else read it, make sure what I'm saying makes sense. So we'll help you with all that. Mark gets all the pictures together and just does a beautiful job laying it all out. So our presentation today is going to be done by Ed Morand, and as you probably noticed on these tables, we've got various objects that make sound. I'll let Ed get into that later on. I know it's going to be a great presentation, and Ed's also kindly agreed to be our auctioneer today since Mike Bryan is not present.
Oh,
Did you want me to talk about Dominic?
you can
Yes, I
auction
will.
off that Claxton horn.
Yes, I like it.
Yeah.
Everything's for sale, including me.
Well, nobody wants you.
But with a reserve.
I'm always reserved.
Okay. And I'm going to ask Mark to come up right now. He's going to talk about something for us.
As many of you know or heard, because Bill sent out an email and I've talked to some of you, one of our longtime members, Dominic DiBernardo, passed away.
What?
Yeah, May 22nd.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a,
Terrible. May 22nd.
yeah. Dominic was a real supporter of this club. Those of you who know him know he has a massive collection. And if you've ever been lucky enough to actually visit his collection, you'll see he has a huge building behind his house, 1,600 square foot building full of phonographs and gramophones. And he was always willing to share that with people. People were always welcome to come up and see his collection. He was very hospitable about it. He would also treat us to the club to get to see some of his stuff. Like I've got pictures from the past where he brought all his gems, you know, and he had like a painted gem that's one of a kind with hand-painted flowers on it from the Edison factory. And he had another gem which had a Bettini's, those, you know, Bettini's very rare reproducers. He had a gem with a Bettini reproducer and a few other very rare gems, and he would be willing to bring all of them. He brought things to this club like tinfoil machines, which are 1877, 1878. He brought early things like bell tainter machines. His collection was extensive. He had got to be the world's best collection of Berliner gramophones. He has all the early gramophones that most people would have one or two, but he had all of them. It was unbelievable. So he passed away, as I said, just a little while ago. It's a real shame. What I'm going to do is maybe take some pictures of all his collection, and at some point, maybe next year, do a presentation where we can again share a view of some of his collection. Yeah.
How old was he, if you don't mind me asking?
He was 77.
Good. That's too young.
Yeah, it was, and it was very rapid. Like,
Well, some people die young.
yeah, he was ill for quite a while, but then it just
It's
went.
no good to suffer, and better going to suffer.
Well, I forgive him because I used to think, why isn't he here at the meetings?
Yeah,
And I had no idea, yeah. I
yeah.
had to do
The
a
thing you know when you're buddy, I think.
I went out and bought, he asked me to come and buy some records, opera, and I had a tour. 3.5 hours I was there with him. He
Yeah.
was really into it.
He loved playing his machines. I would say to him, he's got a bell tainter, and there's like very few cylinders of bell tainters, like the Ozo Stereo one. And I said to him, well, you got a couple, like, have you ever heard them? No, can we try them? So we would try them, and we would try the tinfoil machines, and he's just a magnificent
Do you know
collection.
how he got into the hobby?
No.
I know why he got into it.
He had I was in his warehouse, and he showed me this little portable suitcase with
Yeah,
gramophone.
same story.
And I think that was his most prized possession, belonged to his dad.
Oh, yes.
bought
He
it
did
back
show me
from,
that, yeah.
What country?
Italy.
Ethiopia? Or Germany, after the war. Italy, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that's right, yeah.
Yeah, his father was in World War II.
And I had a similar connection to my father as to why I got interested in gramophone, which I will give an article. I made an article about this. I gave it to that blonde lady who was supposed to look after it, and she quit. So I'm gonna dig it up, I'll bring it in.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, that's the kind of thing we're really looking for. Okay.
But that collection must be worth millions.
The prices have really come down.
Have they now?
Yeah, I'm in the process of helping the family sell his
Oh,
collection.
good for you.
So, and I'm already making contacts, but it's disappointing to find some of the stuff some of the rare stuff has come down. Because there are a number of major collections that have come up in the last couple of years. There's one, Howard Hazelcorn's collection came up a couple of years ago. And Don Gaffel, who's an American collector, who has a big collection, apparently as big as Dominic's almost. His auction is in August this year. So it's really you know.
Michigan?
Yeah, at Stan's. Yeah.
What
Okay.
did you miss?
Yes, for sure,
Yeah,
right?
great.
What a shock.
Thanks, Mark. I just want to say, I joined CAPS in 1991, and when you don't know anybody here, and you're sort of just sitting there watching the presentations, I found, it was Dominic who came up to me and he starts talking and asking me questions and what I like and this and that, and he's telling me about his collection. And I found he was always one of these people that made you feel comfortable talking to him, and a walking wealth of knowledge. He was always willing to help out, especially if you were looking for a part or something like that.
May I say a quick thing here? In terms of how I knew about this club, my ex-wife, on a rare occasion, actually gave me some good advice. Whilst in church,
Remember you picked her.
and they put on a good act for the first 5 years. And the psycho bug. So, see, we were at this church at the end of our street where we were married with the kids, and she said, "Is there something on the bulletin board at the back of the church? There's a guy called John Rutherford giving a speech at United Church next week about the club." And oh my God, it was great. I went to it. To my horror, I barely got in. The whole church was packed. I couldn't find a seat. Found a seat. It was a wonderful evening. And I said to these old ladies whom I was sitting with, I said, "Can't you feel it? The spirit, the magic in the air?" And they all said, because it really was a magical evening, because he had 15 machines lined up. A famous Italian opera singer, a very old man, who recorded it on a 2-minute machine and played it back, and we were the chorus. And it was a wonderful evening. I went downstairs and started to comment about the club, and he said, "I don't know what you're talking about. You must be referring to my brother."
Oh, you had a twin brother.
Identical twin, absolutely identical. What? He's over there. So I made up, I said to John, "I want you to remember me because I'll be in this club for the rest of your life." And I did. I joined up.
He was a great presenter.
Oh, he was.
Very entertaining. He used to present, I did a lot of years, I organized the meetings. And it was like, I got John at least once a year or once every 2 years, because he always brought stuff in and did sing-alongs and things like that.
Oh,
He was very, good speaker.
like everybody's favorite grandfather. Good guy. I thought I was the youngest when I came here. I seem to be the oldest. I'm 74. I'm not.
Nothing on me.
All right. But 77 for Dominic, my goodness.
Yeah.
I hope to hit 80, but good luck.
He died in peace.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to move on now. And normally Don Colville helps out with a discussion introduction section that we have, and it's called Just Saying. And also, Brian Nix often introduced a topic to us called, "What is this thing I found?" Something to that effect. So what I sort of did was combine the two topics today. Thanks, Mark. To sort of introduce you to something that I found myself, and I thought, I'd like to show you what I found, and at the same time, get your input on what exactly it is. We have a little noise happening outside here, so we're just closing the doors. So recently, I acquired a mahogany Victrola 6. It's a Canadian-made model. It's in original condition. And when I got it home, like, you take a first look at things and you think, oh, okay, I know what it's come with. And then as I looked closer at the reproducer, I found it wasn't exactly what I had expected. So we're going to start off with pictures. Mark, do you have to load the pictures up, or Kyle, can you load them? Kyle can do it? Okay, we'll do that one first. So this was the reproducer. What kind of reproducer is it?
Round.
It's round, yeah.
Oh, it says it's fresh.
What does it say?
Made in Switzerland.
Yeah.
Thorns?
I naturally assumed it was an exhibition until you take a close look at it. And it's funny on it, it says, "It's the best American sound box made in Switzerland." And so it was quite different to say the least, but I found when it came time to rebuild it, exhibition gaskets worked in it, exhibition diaphragm worked in it, and it looks like it's a knockoff. Can we go to the next pictures? which will combine them side by side, you can see they look almost identical to an actual exhibition. One thing that is different is the little screws that hold the needle bar in, but even the springs are identical. Totally the same. Just seemed like an oddball. And can we go to the next picture? We'll look at the back of it. This is where they differ. The exhibition is on the right, and the expression, what's the exact name of it? Yeah, the expression is on the left. The only difference I see is that the Victor uses 2 screws for the back gasket, the other one's using 3. Has anyone seen one like this before? Brian, you have.
I actually just rebuilt one a couple days ago.
Did you?
And I've seen one before that because I had a customer that wanted the flange for it. And I had one and I sold him the flange off of mine. The one I just rebuilt, I literally took the exhibition one and drilled new holes in it.
Oh, did you? And it worked?
Like phonograph shop, nobody has the expression one with the 3 holes.
Huh.
Yeah.
So you've seen them before then?
Not very often. Like I said, literally, I've only had one, and out of customers, I supplied just the backing for one. That was maybe a year or 2 ago, and then literally, I just have a customer that I've seen recently, and I just rebuilt it for him. And it was like that one that was pretty hard and crusty, so
Yeah.
I would normally, replace it on an exhibition. So I basically, you can see the top right holes line up with the pin. So I literally was able to line that up and just drill 2 new holes for the other one. It was not fun, or not, I wouldn't say not fun. It wasn't easy, drilling through leather with a regular drill bit, but I was able to get it big enough and get the screws in. So.
Cool. Ed, you wanted to add something?
For this presentation, I have a deco with the reverse, with the back on, the sound reverberates off, or reflects off the back. And the reproducer fell off the deca, and it's like this with the 3 screws, but as Brian, I found one of the Victor flanges fitted, and I drilled the 3 holes and reattached it, the same thing exactly.
Yeah.
And the arm is like a Victor on the deca.
Yeah, it's funny.
So,
Angelo.
Just to follow up with what Brian said, I had that problem many years ago that the back flange was gone and you just cannot find it. So you have to, you got no choice. I'd like to be able to find the guy who makes them and doesn't drill them.
Right.
And then you can drill the 3
You can use
holes
it.
and, you're not hiding everything.
I've asked Brian Parley from the phonograph shop, and he's so busy, it seems to be the last thing that he'd want to think about right now is to get a supplier to make some with 3 holes or even with no holes. But yeah, I think aside from having an extra hole in the back that you don't really need, it's probably easier to have at least one hole to work with and then drill the others in place. But yeah, especially in this hobby, you just can't find everything, so you gotta improvise.
Right. I tried
Sorry, Angela wasn't done yet, so.
I tried to look up some information on it. Yes, Peter?
The camera's not working. It's not working.
It's not showing up there.
This is the microphone, so I'm trying to swing it back and forth.
sorry.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm actually up in the top there, but I'm just trying to get the picture on the screen. So in researching this, Angelo, yes?
There's also more other makes the same, not just.
I was gonna mention that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there are others,
So you've come across them?
yeah.
And they're basically knockoffs of Victor,
Well,
right?
they're identical, other than the 3 holes.
Yeah. It's funny. Seem to weigh the same and everything.
I forget the name of the other one, but yeah, I think there's.
Actually, I found it. So on the Talking Machine World, somebody in California said, someone had and this is an expression, there's also one called an expedition. Clearly a play on exhibition. So it seems there were a few companies making knockoffs of at least the Victor reproducers, if not more. I just found it interesting when you think, like, Victor was the leading manufacturer, and these blatant knockoffs were going on at the time. Yes.
It could have been.
Hey, Mark.
The Europeans did to circumvent a Victor patent.
That's true, right? Someone was online, do you want to comment?
Tom here, Tom Ray here, if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you, go ahead.
It looks to me, I was looking at the two of them face on there, and it looks like the aperture, the small hole in it, is bigger on the exhibition. And I just held my ruler up to it, on my screen. It looks like the hole is smaller in the expression than the exhibition, like the one that exits.
Could be. Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, I was just surprised that there's people in California that have these machines, and the machine I have had the Canadian brass plate on it. So I thought, wow, this is pretty far-reaching that they distributed these knockoffs. And I was just wondering if anybody come across it, but I think it makes sense that Brian and Angelo come across it, and probably other people online too.
Yeah, the interesting thing that I found was the customers was probably like a VVX1 or something, which is obviously a very common, it might have even been a Canadian model. So obviously it didn't originally come with it. So where did it come from? Did somebody lose one, misplace one? Was it damaged and they just, somehow they found one and they just put it on? But where did it come from originally? Who knows? Because the person had it from a family member, so it might have had the expression for quite a while before he would have even known it was any different.
Yeah. Okay.
How does it sound?
It sounds exactly like an exhibition. I didn't really notice any difference. So, at first I thought, oh, what's this? I got ripped off. And I thought, no, it's, you go to rebuild it. And I thought, well, I had all the parts. So anyway, I thank you all for your input with this. And if anyone thinks of a discussion topic to open up a meeting with, please let me know. We're always looking for just any kind of topic just related to the gramophone or hobby. That's about it for our introduction. We're going to move on now to our presenter, Ed Moran. He's coming up here.
Maybe premature. Some of you know, I'm a wide collector. I collect almost anything. And when I get into it, I buy like crazy, and then I move into something new. Order, yeah, it's a problem.
And don't cut women on you being.
Why not? Anyway,
You're away from murder.
we had a wonderful presentation, and they're not here today, but Tyler and Greg on the ear. It was fascinating to me, the biology, the physics of what was done with that. And it prompted me actually about this topic, about sound. And this isn't a topic we normally talk about here at the Gramophone Club, other than as it relates to a phonograph. What does the word mean, phonograph?
Writing sound?
Pardon?
Writing sound?
Yes. Phono, sound Greek, and graph is writing, so sound. What was the gramophone invented, or what was its purpose? What was the purpose of the phonograph? Why? Wasn't to record music. It was not about music at all. It was to record the voice. Edison and previous were trying to record the human voice. Preservation of the voice. And how many people have relatives that die and they can't get rid of the answering machine? Because it's their mother on the answering machine. And we treasure voice and sound. I got a little experiment. I dug this out and had to rebuild a reproducer because I never played the darn thing, but. Through the ages I'll remember. How many like the record? What? All right, that's fine. That's the way I want to be. All right, we'll try something else. Maybe you do like it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time playing your records. Don't worry. So you got the idea. How many like that record? One. Two. Half up, half down. 3, 2.5. That's the rating I get on that poor thing. Well, I'm just gonna play a couple more. We're not gonna spend a lot of time playing with the records, don't worry. Well, how many? Whoa, I am actually surprised. I am surprised. Usually, why don't spend money on classical records when they're available, but that's not a problem. Last one. I'm not gonna play this last one. See how it does. How many like that one?
Hey, what is that? What is that?
Oh, I don't. I got albums of these things. I don't know. Some blues. You read it? I can't read. I lost that. I need somebody from Ottawa to help me. Russell.
Randy, make up your mind. That's by Gutsy Spader and his ragtime band. That's a good one.
That's a good one. Another auction find. Why do you like that? Why do you like that record?
Jazz, you can lie.
Upbeat, get you going.
If I looked and I couldn't find a Hawaiian record. How many like Hawaiian music?
Yeah.
Terrible, Peter.
How many dislike Hawaiian music? If you put Hawaiian group up here, be lucky to get $1. I know that. But if I was in Hawaii and I was Hawaiian, I like Hawaiian music. Why?
Because they have too much to drink.
Too much to drink.
Yeah,
You got your own problems, Ken, not the rest of us. So why? So all I'm getting at here is, why do we like some music and we dislike other music? What is it? What is it in us? But if I was Hawaiian and lived in Hawaii, I'd probably like Hawaiian music. I don't get a lot of Asian music. I don't understand it because it isn't fit. So is your life of sound innate or is it learned?
I think it's learned.
I don't know.
We heard how when a tree falls, there is no sound. There is no sound when the tree falls. The only reason we hear the tree fall is because of the air molecules which are translated by our brain into a sound. But do we all hear a tree falling in the same way? I don't know. I don't think any of us really know. So sound is a really interesting item. What are my notes? I can't even know what I'm doing. Is a very interesting thing to think about. How we use sound, how we hear sound, how we translate sound, and sounds that appeal to us. We already talked a bit about the phonograph as being a way to preserve sound. All I've done today is look at how sound affects us and how it's been used, with a lot of examples. And is my propensity, I tend to go out and buy. So I bought all of these whistles at once.
Wow.
From a whistle collector who no longer can whistle because he's not with us. Anyway, they're part of a collection. What is a whistle? What is a whistle? Well, believe it or not, we all envisage this, something like this as being a whistle, probably. That's what we think of as a whistle. In fact, a whistle is far, far wider in its perspective than we tend to give it credit for. It's a small wind instrument, and you probably know people who are good at whistling without an instrument. So we can whistle. Trains of whistles, the wind whistles too, and the world is full of whistles. Whistle is a word with several meanings, but they have a common, similar, high-pitched, airy sound that's different from most instruments. You can't tuba without a tuba, but you can whistle and you can use a whistle. So you can do both. You can use it as a noun or a verb, but you can't tuba a tuba without a tuba. Referees, traffic cops carry them. Other people whistle because they're impressed seeing they like or don't like. And we don't hear it today because it's not proper, but it was famous for construction worker to see someone going by, a young woman who Marilyn Monroe it with her skirt raises and gets a whistle. Now, today would be very inappropriate, obviously, even though you might want to whistle. You don't dare whistle because you will be in immediate trouble. A whistle is an instrument which reduces sound from a stream of gas. It can be compressed gas, mostly air, and it's mouth operated or powered by air pressure, steam, or other means. And whistles have been around since the beginning of time. They go back 3,000 years to the Chinese. They used to make whistles out of acorns, and on the Great Wall, they would blow on these. They were created, that there was a Mongolian attack coming. So they were used as a signal and a method of defense for the invasion. Whistles have been found from the Iron Age, from babies in clay with little rattles inside and a whistle, and they would rattle them. And so rattles, whistles have been around a long, long time. Go back in history. I picked some whistles to look at. Police whistles. A fella came, Joseph Hudson, started working at the age of 12. He had worked for a company called Bent and Parker, and they made army supplies. And in 1870, he was only 22, and he started his own business. And he designed the Acme City brass whistle. And this became the first referee whistle to be used at football matches during 1878 when they were playing football with the Nottingham and Sheffield. What did they do before that in a game? How did they signal in a game? They signaled with handkerchiefs. And you still see a bit of that today, waving a handkerchief as being a signal. In 1883, Hudson began tinkering in his workshop and started to make the first whistles, and observing local police struggling to communicate. Originally, police conducted traffic with a ratchet. And you've seen these, I haven't seen one in years. They were wood, and they have a handle, and you go like this, rat-tat-tat-tat, you swirl them around, and they make a noise. And that's, pardon me?
I got one.
Exactly, and they used to be very common. I remember as a
I
kid.
never knew what it was used for.
Yeah, well, the police, that was the original. Today, they're just toys. Hudson also was a violin player and accidentally dropped his violin, and it shattered. And he noticed the very discordant sound that produced when he dropped the violin. And that gave him the idea to put a P in the whistle. The little P, when you look in the hole of a whistle, you see that little P. Today, they aren't Ps, they're synthetic, what they use. This gave an ear-splitting rattle that could grab attention even from a mile away. And somebody was talking today about when he was a kid, his mother had a whistle and would blow it, and no matter where you were, it was time to come home.
That being a policeman whistle.
A policeman's whistle.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to get to that. He demonstrated his whistle at Scotland Yard, and he made his first sale. This is Hudson. The Metropolitan was invented by Joseph Hudson. The whistle was adopted by most police forces in the United Kingdom, and in 1884, he contracted with the police, and the Hudson was the largest whistle manufacturer for the British Empire and most police forces across the world. And his design was improved and be known as the Acme Thunderer. And that's a very famous whistle. Even today, it's still the largest whistle that is produced. The P whistle, which remains the most used in the world today. During World War I, Hudson and Company produced the Hudson Officer's Trench Whistle. And they had trench on them and Hudson's name with Birmingham and the date stamped on the whistle. Now, I have brought a series of whistles, and I just thought I'd blow some of them. These are usually engraved, they have names on them. These are the small whistles.
Oh.
Same key.
Notice a different change in
Yeah,
pitch
that's
in
cool.
some of the whistles. Poor fellow. That's just oh, what's the name on it? And many of them were named. Tom Thumb. Fits.
Ah, yeah.
Poor little Tom Thumb. What's this one called? The Acme Thunderer, a baby model. Amazing. Same size, same everything. And then we move into the bigger ones. Remember, for the police, this is where these first started. They were used in sporting events and eventually a lot of military use. Big whistle, lousy sound.
Yeah. And
Brass. The first whistles were, sorry?
Sorry, the warbling sound, is that from the little ball itself?
That's what it was in there. They added that into it. These are brass, 3 brass whistles.
Or sound.
And the 2 previous ones, did they mention anything about sports? Because that's,
Well, the Acme Thunderer is used, well, there is one down here that if you're a sports guy, you will recognize, because the referee carried it. That's the one you're probably thinking most about, which is signed made in, oh dear, Hong Kong, a little outside of Britain. Well, no, British protector at one time. And we can go on, all the different formats for whistles that came along. Let's look at war. War and whistle, yes? You've got a question?
Just
Sorry.
a quick question. It's
Absolutely.
maybe an ignorant question, but do cops still use whistles?
That's a really good question, and I don't live in the city. So I will ask somebody who lives in the city, do you ever see a policeman cop with a whistle? I do know in the Caribbean, whistles are still, I've seen the Caribbean where they still have the police officers directing traffic because they don't often have stoplights, but I don't know if I can.
They use the plastic Acme Thunderer 585, I think, for Toronto Police.
We have, I think, and Tim also brought one, so we'll get a look at that whistle. China, ancient Egypt. Night watchmen in China would blow at the top of acorns, as I said, do for the Mongolians. Egypt took 2 blades of papyrus plant along the Nile and were held together between the palms. Who as a kid hasn't taken a couple pieces of grass, put them and blow? I don't know if you've done it. It's a whistle.
Yeah.
You blow into it and you make the sound. Bird bone whistles were played in the 12th century in Dublin. Now, Navy and Crusades, the boatswains, and when I bought these whistles, there was a shelf with boatswain whistles, and I wasn't fast enough bidding to get them. So I don't have one. But you know what they look like, because when a dignitary comes on board the great ship, the Queen would arrive, you'd hear the boatswain, you'd hear that whistle? It's a long whistle. Perhaps someone has one. I'm sorry I don't have one. I wish I did. I gotta get one. And I've only got a few years left to get one. So. And it's called a boatswain's pipe. Whistle was used aboard Navy vessels to issue commands and salute dignitaries, and still used in modern navies. And it's thought to be developed from pipes used in ancient Greece and Rome to keep the stroke of galley slaves. And in medieval times, whistles were used during the Crusades to assemble English crossbowmen for an attack. World War I. Imagine trench, men lined up, that everybody moves and does the right kind of thing in unison. Like when it's going to be, everybody's going to have to go on the attack, how they did it. It was originally done with like handkerchiefs and waving things in the air. Not a heck of a good way to get everybody to do the same thing at the same time. Hence the development of a whistle. They used different tones of whistles to coordinate troop movements with platoons and section leaders, using thunderer whistles and knightlet whistles, and even battalion commanders using siren whistles. Same in the Second World War. Many were used by branches of the armed forces, and during the Second World War, the Army, Navy, Royal Air Force, United States Air Force used them as emergency signaling and had them attached to the uniforms or equipment. Here are they're very similar, two of the most prized whistles you ever want to own. You notice the top has a medallion and there are attachments at the back, and it fit on the leather crossings that officers would wear, and it attached. And this whistle also has attachments. So the officer, this was an officer's whistle, would wear it like this. And this whistle is like 1850, worn by officers. They were made in silver plate, but they were also made in sterling. What is sterling?
Pure silver.
Not pure silver. 925 silver. 925 1,000th of pure silver, almost pure silver, the English standard, sterling. And there's a little button on the back, and the whistle comes out. And that was an officer's whistle. Quite collectible today. This what symbolized and often had the motto of the regiment on the top, but the basis was the lion for bravery, loyalty, strength. That would be worn. One of these is silver plate, and one is sterling, of the two whistles that you see there. Very, very collectible kinds of whistles. The next whistle I'm going to show you is, as I bought it, and I hadn't got a clue what was that ring in there? I'm indoors. You may want to go home now, but I can keep you here if I briefly would. This whistle, inside is a badge. There's a badge, you can probably see it roughly from where you are. And it has on it ARP. What does it stand for? Air, good. Air raid percussion. Yes. Air raid, Second World War. These were issued by the Home Office in Britain to civilians at the time of an air raid. There were sirens, but the sirens didn't tell you and didn't organize at the shelter. So people were appointed to be air raid wardens who carried this badge, because you had to have a badge, that's how you know you're a real, and a whistle. At first they stored them at the entrances to the air raid shelters. Why would you want to store them and keep them there? Well, they didn't like it. Why? Because the next guy came along, who blew in this whistle the last time? I want to blow the same whistle. So they eventually issued them to everybody had their own whistle. And this is the Metropolitan whistle, which we're going to see another one, and hear another one. Tim brought one, and this is a very famous whistle, the long one, which eventually replaced. And that would signal and herd people down into the air raid shelters to keep them safe when they went down, and you had your badge, and you kept this. These are not terribly uncommon, to be honest with you. The Thunderer was also made in other materials. This is Bakelite, the same whistle, same design, but obviously not of the same quality as the first whistle. We move along. We looked at this whistle briefly, which has now been used extensively in sporting events and is standard fare still today. These whistles are fascinating. What are they? I've got an example. There's about 8 of them here. This one has bells, 2 bells. This has a series of bells around it. Now, I'm not going to say I'm surprised, but I'm a little surprised that nobody knows what these are. Some of them work fine. Let me try one.
Top of the mountain?
Boy, are you far away. Yeah.
Organ tenor?
Rattle for
With all the bells
babies.
and whistles.
These are baby rattles.
Oh.
These are Victorian baby rattles, and they were often used as a christening present. And they came in, the poor people bought the plated ones, the middle class, upper class bought sterling ones, and Queen Victoria's, which is in the Royal Museum, was gold. You notice the bottom are mother of pearl. This one is coral. That's a coral bottom to it. What was the purpose of the bottom? So you could entertain the baby. The nursemaid would want to get the attention of the baby, make the baby smile. I guess, I don't know. I don't know much about that stuff. Why the coral? What's it for? My goodness. For teething.
Oh.
Coral on the bottom, and this is the best rattle here with the coral bottom on. And I think it's interesting and this is just for fun. What do you think it's worth?
Today's value?
Oh yeah, today. If you want to buy that, what would you pay for it?
$100 in an antique store.
$40,000.
That rattle would be $500.
Oh, yeah. More than 100. You don't get nothing for
Cheaper to
it.
buy a baby.
I know you say, who's crazy enough to buy that rattle for $100? But that's true. Me. Anyway, just to give you a reference point, these are very, very collectible kinds of things. And you can see and how they would get elaborate. And here you've got one on a beautiful lanyard. Again, there are variations on the theme, and they're all the same. They got a whistle. And you sure didn't teeth on the bottom of that one because it's silver. Anyway, that gives you some sense. We talked about whistles. What's one of the greatest whistles in the world? What's the biggest whistle you know?
On the ship.
Organ, steam.
Organ. Organ's a big bag of whistles. Huge whistle. Pipes.
Yeah.
Organ pipes. What are you doing? You're blowing air through, and you've got different kinds of pipes, different shapes of pipes, which imitate the violin. They got all the different pipes and sounds with a phenomenal organ. One of the largest organ in the world, I think, is in a Wanamaker, in a department store, I think, around in this, it's terrible, I should have looked it up. But they play it every Christmas. When I used to go to Europe, that was one of the things I always did. I always went to organ concerts. And the most phenomenal one is in Salzburg, where Haydn and Mozart and that, and there's 4 organs, and they would compete in the room. It's kind of hard to picture if you've been in Salzburg and watch the organ, hear an organ concert. It is stunning. In Salzburg is also the castle on the hill. The Hohensalzburg is on the hill. And there is an organ in there called a Stier. And the purpose of the Stier in medieval times, and it's a pipe organ, was to give a blast of sound at 5 o'clock. It did play songs also. It had that, but its main purpose in Salzburg was to blow a blast at 5 o'clock. Why? Right on. Who had a watch?
Nobody got that kind.
Expensive.
Yeah.
You know, 1700s. Even today, buy a pocket watch from the really early Fusée movement pocket watch. You can be in tens of thousands of dollars of those very, very early handcrafted watches. So people couldn't afford a watch. I'm sorry I don't have it. I would like to have brought a watch today, which I did own, and I sold it, called a repeater watch. What is a repeater watch? Imagine it's 1850, you're in a carriage and it's pitch black at night. How do you tell the time? There were no Loomis dials.
Different tones for different quarters.
Yeah, exactly. A repeater watch has a button on it, and depending upon the quality of the repeater watch, it would ding. So if it was 1 o'clock, or 1:30, let's go 1:30, it would go ding and pause, and then go a fast ding. So you knew it was 1:30 to 2 o'clock, between 1:30 and 2 o'clock. A better repeater watch did it on the quarter. And there were repeater watches that did them on the minute. And so you got, and the price changes as the better the repeater watch. I had a quarter repeater pocket watch. So when you pressed it, so in the dark at night, you could tell the time. Most were quarter repeaters, half-hour quarter repeaters, so you could tell within 15 minutes on a quarter repeater what the time was in the carriage, or at night, because there was no other way to tell. You couldn't see what the times was. I did mention instruments, the organ, as being the largest, but think of where we have whistles. Where do we find whistles in common work use? They used to be on trains. They used to be in factories.
You know, subways still, I think.
Do they have subways?
I think they still have subways, but they blow a whistle when the door goes.
Oh, the whistle, the actual whistle. But I'm talking about steam whistles.
Yeah.
Whistles are pervasive in our society. If you start thinking through history of all the whistles that were used and why, from sporting events to military to safety to police to the armed forces, you can go on and on. And some of the most collectible whistles are the steam whistles that you get off trains. They come in all different sizes. Some of them have 3 tones. They have 3 tones when they blast. Some are single. Some will go in sequence. And phenomenal. I used to have a few of those, but I've gotten rid of them because I wouldn't find them if I knew where they were anyway. So. Anyway, quite a unique whistle. What is it? Yeah, it's like a flute.
Yeah.
Famous.
A recorder?
Yeah, recorder.
It's a fife.
Five.
Fife and drum. American Revolution, you know, I can't play it, but it's anyway, that would be used with fife and drum to lead the troops. Nice and easy to carry. You could just hook it on and they would carry this into for use in battle. That's another army use. This was a French whistle, which was interchangeable. You could get different lengths. I don't have the rest of it. I only had the one, but I'm not too good at the whistle, but that's an example of more of a toy. It's just a toy, really. That's all it is, but an example of the whistle. Okay, enough of the whistle. What time is it? I have no idea. 1:53. I'm moving. I'm moving. I have to be here indefinitely. Bells. Where do we find bells? Church. Lots of bells in churches. Historic. Religions. Catholic Church, bells ringing. Buddhist temples, bells ringing. Bells have been part of it. What were bells for in churches? What was the bad? Why were you in church? To ward off the devil. That's the real reason. It's warding off the devil and the mystic of that whole thing. And a lot of this stuff was mystic. Churches, steeples during the service, schools, schoolyard bells. Remember, many of us remember when the schoolyard, the bell would ring out. They have the handbell, away it would go. You can hear it as I think. On the teacher's desk, the old picture of the teacher's desk, would hit the bell. I don't think we do that anymore. Anything that's to be hit in a classroom is verboten. Fire trucks. When I was a kid, fire rails would be coming and the bell would be ringing and hear it. In the station, there was always a main fire bell, and that brought them to the center brass pole from the second floor, and they just slid down the brass pole and onto the fire truck after the bell rang. Stations on corners. Anybody remember it was emergency? You'd break the glass and you would pull the lever in some, or there was a phone in some of them.
Alarm box,
Yeah, Gamewell produced many of those, and they're quite collectible. They're the Gamewell. So you get fire bells all over. Factory bell for time. When the factory ended its day, the bell would go. Christmas, sleigh bells, bells. Here we're talking about work bells, and one moment we're talking about fun bells. But they're all the same really bells. It's just the way we interpret them and how they were used. Trains, bells, horses, animals, cows, goats. Even they used to attach bells on children. I remember clearly something where kids wore a harness with bells, and they actually put the kid with the harness on the clothesline. Can you imagine that today? Children's aid would be all over you, treating your child like that. But the bell, a good beating, okay. Clocks, bells. We even carry bells over into our cell phones. Some people select to have it ring like a phone. The old phone in the house. When I first moved to the country, we were long and too short. And that refers to bells, by the way. That was my ring, and that's the only ring I heard, was a long and too short. If you had a rural line and you heard the bells go off, you knew that. The old streetcars used to have bells in them. With stores, when you went into them, had bells at the door. You opened the door and the bell would go off. The hotels had bells. You rang the bell at the front desk. The bellboy would be there. Lobby, the desk, orchestras, bells. The percussion part of the orchestra often had beautiful bells, beautiful sets of bells, well-tuned, and didn't Leroy Anderson do one with all the bells? And I think, anyway, I'm not up on that. Music boxes had bells. Some of the beautiful music boxes with bees that hit the bells as they played. Street organs. The guy used to ring a bell to get attention over to the organ, so you would give him some money to play. Bells have been around for thousands and thousands of years. Bells are made of almost anything you can think of. Clay, believe it or not, brass, tin. Do you think of some of the horse bells? They're like, you see the Swiss, the cow has the bell, and they're just a piece of metal riveted on one side with the clapper in the inside. Not a very melodic sound, but you know where your horse was, your cow was, your goat was, all those kinds of things. So bells were shaped. Bells immigrated to Europe and were used in ancient Greece by 6th century, and I learned something. 6th century BCE. I hadn't got a clue what that BCE was. Does anybody know?
Before Common Era.
Pardon?
Before Common Era.
That is one meaning. That's ding ding, you win.
No, that's the answer, before Common Era.
No, there's a second interpretation. The original was before Christ. BC, before Christ. And in our current society, that is a thing that is a no-no, and now we've come out before the current era, and that's where a change came. Yes, I researched it because I thought, what is this all about? Some of you are further ahead than I.
Why is it a no-no?
Because you're honoring one religion over another. You're honoring Christ as opposed to Buddha, as opposed to other religions. So in the equity situation, we must. I leave
think like the Jewish calendar, this is the year 47 something or other.
Bells are melodic, percussive instruments, usually made of bronze, copper, tin, steel, glass, wood, or horn. If any of you have ever visited Benjamin Franklin's museum in Philadelphia, you will see there are glass bells which are played with rosin, and you rub the bell and they're all tuned. Yeah. And you can play a whole tune. And they are, in fact, hypobell. They don't use a clapper, they don't use a hammer, but a finger, and you can hear the beautiful bell plays. And how are bells, the bells we think of as the one I have here, how are they made? They're cast, yes. How do you cast the bell? It's called C perdue. The French. And it's used today, and it's been used for centuries, the lost wax process, where you have a mold, then there is a layer of wax that's put on, and then it's put in an outer casing. And when the brass is poured, it melts the wax, and so it's called the lost wax process. Si perdu, death or end of in French. And so the casting, and they do bronze statues today, and so that is the way most good bells are created today, are as reproduction bronze statues, which we get so many of today. Bells and horses. Early horse bells. We don't think of bells, we think of bells, I think, mainly today, those uses that were passed in churches at that, but they were used to adorn horses. Bells were critical in the 1800s to the horse trade, because if you think about horses are all over, how would you hear them? Well, you'd hear the clomping, but horses were adorned with beautiful bells, and the brass that they made for all the fittings and the harnesses often had very elaborate brass put on them, and it would warn that carts were coming down the road and things of that nature. And so it was like a horn, if you like, to let you know that it was there. What killed the bell? What killed the bell? The horse?
No, the horn.
The horn?
Oh, well, you're so close, it's the automobile killed the bell because the horses were eventually used to transport things and move things. The automobile began to take over, and it's the story that you see with the phonograph. You start with a roller organ is killed by the phonograph, which is eventually killed by a cassette tape, which one item comes in and the other one dies along the line. And the beautiful bells that were created were killed by Henry Ford. And Henry Ford's cars, I think, started out about $950 and dropped to around $250. So the common person could then get a car, and cars became prevalent. And there was conflict over it. The horse and the horse's buggy was going to kill everybody, and they're dangerous, etc., etc. Sleigh bells are very much a part of our current culture, and people associate bells with Christmas. I brought a nice set of bells, the big ones. And one of my pleasures in life was my neighbor had horses, and I had a sleigh, real sleigh. I rebuilt it all with the canes and the whole bit. And she wanted to buy it off me, and I said, yes, but you're going to take me for a ride through the forest with the horse on the sleigh. And 2 hours we went through the forest where I live, through the trails. And I'll never forget, it was just like stepping back in time to be able to do that. And it's something you see. And you think about bells in our culture. What's the most famous bell song?
Sleigh bells?
Jingle bells.
Jingle Bells.
Oh, yes.
I think it's around 1840, 1850. Lord Pierpont wrote the first for that. But that's part of very much our culture, and bells are still part of our culture. There was a town in the United States which was known as Belltown, because most of the bells came from there. East Hampton earned the world fame as Belltone or Jingletown in the 1800s. That's where bells really took off. We're coming along. Whitechapel. Can't go along without talking about Whitechapel. Whitechapel Bell Foundry, the longest surviving bell manufacturer in the world, was 450 years old. Whitechapel is part of London. They were in business for, I think, around 450. They went out of business around 2017, really recently. And they produced some of the most famous bells in the world. The two famous ones we tend to think of are Liberty Bell. And what happened to the Liberty Bell? It cracked. How did it crack? How did the Liberty Bell crack?
The first time it was played, correct?
Nope. You're close, but there is another bell. That, when they were moving it across the ocean, it cracked in transit. And they brought it to Philadelphia. They repaired it. Now, if you know anything about metallurgy, it's never quite right once you repair things like that. You can repair them, but it's not a very pure sound of the bell. And I think in, what year, I can't remember the year, but it was the 50th anniversary. It was Washington's birthday. They played the bell and they cracked it again. So that's the one when you go to Philadelphia and you see in that hut, that is that original bell, and it was subsequently replaced, but that original Liberty Bell. But it was in transit across the ocean that it broke. What's the second famous? And they're both Whitechapel.
Big Ben.
Big Ben. The largest bell ever cast by the Whitechapel. I think it's like 21 tons or something. It's astronomical, the size of this bell. And it cracked, but it cracked the way you're talking about, the clapper. The clapper is the unit in the bottom, and it's supposed to hit a very specific area on the side of the bell called the waist. That's the widest and thickest part of the bell when it's cast. And it was too big, and it cracked the bell. And it was repaired. So the bell that we think of as Big Ben is a repaired bell. And that very distinctive sound is partially due to the fact that it was cracked. And when you think of it playing there. This is a bell. It's about 150 years old. If you look at it, you can't see without looking at here. It's number 26, and it's got the Mears inscription. Mears was the master founder, one of the master founders of the Whitechapel Bell Company. Was a master founder. It's like the head winemaker, the head bellman. And if you look at the list, there are about 30 names on the list, and the Mears were on it for many, many years. This bell is tuned, and if you know anything about bells, you can get bell ringers, like an orchestra of bells, where they play them, and they're quite beautiful to listen to some of the bells and the bell ringers. And they're around today, and you can buy bell sets. Quite expensive to get a good set. I think it's Chaumarich made the last group that I'm aware of. But anyway, well, I'm going to ring this bell, and the beauty of the bell is the resonance.
Stays right on pitch. Yeah. Pitch doesn't vary.
You can actually hear this bell for quite a long period of time. Yeah. It's so resonant and so beautifully, beautifully made. This bell's about 150 years old. Wow. And by the founder of Mears. Yes?
What would the purpose have been?
Whitechapel sold bells to many, many of the cathedrals. They sold bells for incidental uses. For instance, this bell could very easily be used by the town crier. A bell like this, probably this is too big for a town crier bell. But anything you could think was a bell, from small bells to big bells to whatever, they made the bell. Any use that you can think of, that they would cast bells. Qu'est-ce que c'est? What is it?
Dinner bell.
Hmm?
Dinner bell.
Oh, this guy's, I'm gonna take you out of the room. It's good. In the beautiful home at dinner, this would be in the center of the table. And in those days, everybody had their own spoon, and it was usually marked with your name on it. Eliza, whatever the name, Beulah, I don't know. And your spoon hung here. And you always used that spoon. Everybody had to use their own spoon. You didn't mix your spoons. And when you needed service from the maid or dinner was ready, the maid would come in, bring the next course, etc., etc. So that's an example of how you can use a bell like that.
Ed,
Yes.
can I hold it to the camera?
Oh, sure. The rest of what I brought are just more for interest, but they are all related to what I've just been talking about, bells, and go on to this forever. I brought 2 bird boxes. Well, actually, pardon me, I brought 4 bird boxes. This one, I should have brought a better one. It isn't too loud. Bird is moving. Bird moves, the tail moves, back and forward it goes. But this cage, I would say, is probably 30s, French. This is older. This one is turn of the century.
Yeah.
How does it work?
Ed? Can I hold it?
How does it work?
Is it a series of bells, like in a cuckoo clock?
No, there is a bellows. I'm not, yes, that part is right.
Is there a bellow in there?
Yes, there are bellows. It's air driven. It's a whistle. Anybody as a kid ever have one of those, you put your mouth in it, had a plunger that went in and out? You went, that's what that is. So there's a cam in there, and a bellows. Bellows is driving air in, and a cam is moving a plunger in the cylinder, which you get the different sounds, the different pitch and sounds as it goes and sings. And interesting, all the birds in these are European birds singing, which makes sense because they're German normally, Swiss, German, sometimes Austrian, Czech, that kind of thing. Yeah, I dropped a foot, it's in the box, I think. So there's 2 examples, and these are made today by Riouge. The good ones are made by Riouge still in Saint-Croix, Switzerland, and available. Now, if you were rich, this is what you would have. Bird box. This is in sterling. This one's made probably by Griesbaum. Griesbaum was the father, modern day father of bird boxes. It works exactly the same as these. Has a cam, has this little thing, but it's in a fine form. And the Swiss loved it, and they loved the millionaires, billionaires, wherever they were in their day, the rich and idle. This is what they wanted. And when you pull the lever,
Ed, can you bring it around here?
once more, you want it?
Yeah, they want to see it too, yeah.
Dangerous these is never touch,
Full of water.
never touch the lid.
You really care.
Just push it.
You don't have to push it, pull it if you want it to work again. It should have enough.
Yeah, all right.
Oh, it's wound down. All right, no, I have the key over here.
Okay.
Well, we have another one. One more, and then we'll move very quickly, because I know you're all tired of this stuff. Never touch the lid. You ever get your hands on one, don't push it. Destroys it.
How many people have this one?
Here's the same thing. This is 1800s, this is French. This is the valuable one. This is the creed. This is made by Roger, and it's signed even. If you take the lid, you take the screws and take it apart. It's signed by the French automaton maker.
What's the value of something like that?
This one or that?
Both.
You can buy this on the net. I would suspect you'd be, well, crazy people ask stupid prices, but I would think you'd be around 5,000 US for this one. This one would be more in the range of 10 to 15,000.
Oh my goodness. So I'm afraid to pay 4,000 for the opera.
Well, we haven't discussed how crazy that is yet, and we'll get to it. But where are you gonna get it? If you want it, that's what you do, and it takes a long time to find these kinds of things. Some more just easy examples. These are more, what is it? Just for fun, what is it?
Hearing aid.
Absolutely. And they used to make these out of horn and all sorts of things. So you had a hearing aid. Grandma would sit there and it's really just one of our horns in reverse.
Yeah.
That's all it is. But these are quite collectible, believe it or not. Just why do you want it? Well, it's great for TV. People have already been playing with the horn. All this stuff is related to sound and usually whistles or the like. And this was a, I think, about 1915 horn used on the Model T Ford. Several companies, this is by Claxton, which is a company, and it is the Uga horn. Good God.
Now it's killed.
Scare the shit out of the horse who had the bell. Now, okay, what is it? No, you're going to play. What is it?
For calling servants?
Pardon?
Calling servants?
Absolutely, for calling servants. So this would be in the servants' quarter, and the bell would ring. And some of these were like the old organs, which were interconnected from the keyboard to the various pipes. But this bell would ring, and the servants would be downstairs in Downton Abbey, and the bell would ring, and the number would tell you which part of the house it was. So the hand would move, and you would know, oh, it's in Mrs. So-and-so's bedroom, or it was the dining room calling, so you knew which person to send up to tend to their wear, to what they had to do. What is this? What is this? Some of you had a look. I covered up purposely what was there. I just bought this, 4 months ago. I've never seen one, had not a clue. If you were where this was located, it would be this way. It wouldn't be like this. It would be like this.
Come up with a drugstore or a pharmacy or something?
You're on the right track, but no.
A bank?
Pardon?
A bank?
A bank? We're getting close.
Post office.
We're close. What was it for? That might help.
Okay, not for post office, not for bank.
What was it for? No, you can't tell.
Do it anyway, big bank.
Anything else? No one want to guess? All right. Here's a nickel.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, it's coin.
Drops in the box.
So would you?
There's the nickel. It was in my hand. Magic. It was invented in the late 1800s by a pub keeper. So to make sure that people serving the beer put their money in, and this was a double. They came in singles, half, or doubles. This happens to be a double. So when the barmaid got the money, the innkeeper, who couldn't watch where all the money was all the time, she would put them in, and he would know the coin went in by the sound of the bell. The bell was the clue of where it was. And then the coin could be put in this side from another patron, and you could see the coin dropping down and into the box. So it was a first cash register,
What's the stuff on the right and left side?
because it would serve two customers. You could buy one or a double. You could have just that much. It just happens to be double. Invented by Cox. I'm going to shut up now. We have a couple people to show some things, and then we're done. Brian?
Go ahead.
Yes?
You know what? That cash register, would it have a different sound for different
No,
coins?
one bell. Nope. All they were interested in that somebody paid. It was just a method to make sure that it wasn't going. Brian?
You want to go there?
Thank you.
And again, it's just under things that make sound, novelty items, much like this. Photographs, an album.
Very nice.
Yeah.
The Lazy Susan.
My ex-sister-in-law was Susan. I used to have that all the time for lazy.
Still lazy. And then my favorite. Free cocktails. And how dry I am is playing on it. Music box sounds. You want to do
Tim? Thank you, Brian.
Yeah.
Just a few little, my own collection. I first got interested in whistles when my mother brought home an old Acme Thunder she found in her new desk at her high school when she changed offices. This one, Ed blew earlier, Metropolitan. If you go to the Acme Whistle website, for every one they sell, you can actually press a button to blow it and hear the different tunes. We used for air raid precautions, like I said, and this one was also specific for Scotland Yard. Different cities' police departments had different tones, but this was Scotland Yard. This one I found at the Science Centre, where they had the Titanic exhibit there. And the Titanic stamp on the side, which they never would have done in the Merchant Navy, but it was the same one the officers used. When the subway first came to Canada in 1955, they had these ones as well, for the subway guards. In the 60s, they replaced them with the plastic ones. But if you rode the subway in the 50s and you were running for the door, you might remember the door was slammed shut in your face and you had to wait for the next one. These two little bells came from family members. My father's mother's father had one of the first ever car body shops in London. And it was just him working there. So we had a little bell on the table at the front door, so if he was in the shop working on a car, customer came in, asked for service. Today they might get a slightly different use. You might get a certain kind of person in the store going, "Hello, I need the manager." This bell is a little sad. I love the sound of it. It sounds more like wind chimes than a bell. We used to jokingly use it as a dinner bell in our family. My dad's father's aunts, he had two aunts, and in their old age they lived together in a home in South Brixton. And they both loved to smoke. And as they got old and a bit tired, they took to having a cigarette in bed before they went to bed. And unfortunately, one of them fell asleep while she was still smoking and burned the house down, and they both went with it. And this bell is one of the very few things that survived the fire. But I always loved the sound of it. I always, as a kid, I always loved the sound this one made. It's just got the multiple tines coming down rather than a solid bell, a bell hanging in it. So it's a very sad little dinner bell.
Beautiful sound.
Yeah.
And Mark?
Okay.
A bell too?
Nope, not a bell. This is being produced, well, it was produced a few years ago. It's a great thing to show how sound is made. Now, when Edison, okay, there we go. Thanks. When Edison invented the tinfoil machine, the way the sound was recorded, the diaphragm vibrated and the needle went like this. And as the drum rotated, it put dents in the tinfoil, which was the sound wave recorded into the tinfoil. Then when the tinfoil was played back, the needle would ride over those bumps and reproduce the sound. So what someone did was they took those bumps from, let's say, a tinfoil, and they pressed them into this piece of plastic. So the bumps are in there. So if I pull my nail across it, it's someone saying Happy New Year. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
And then I have another one that says, Be My Valentine. Like, it's really, like, it shows fundamentally how simple the idea was to produce sound. Oops. Isn't that amazing?
Thank you, Bert.
Yeah.
I said we'd be on time, and we're on time.
Great presentation.
Yes.
So now, as usual, we're going to be taking a break for about 15 minutes. And we'll turn off the microphone so it doesn't disturb people. See you back in our auction. Thank you.
And the 50/50 draw, buy your tickets momentarily. Buy many.